In the quiet village of Obeil, nestled between the thick forests and winding streams, lived a young woman named Adiz. Beautiful, tall, with skin like polished mahogany and eyes that sparkled like river stones, she was known in the village not just for her looks, but for her desire, a deep, dangerous hunger for the good life. She was married to Onyedika, a humble hunter. Every morning, he'd disappear into the thick forest with his bow, returning hours later with a rabbit, a wild bird, or sometimes nothing. But Adiz? She wanted more. Perfumes, golden shoes, phones, Brazilian hair, cars, parties in the city, the rich life. Onyedika, she would say, tossing his bushmeat aside, is this the life you promised me? Look at your mates in the city. They drive cars while I fetch water with bare hands. But Onyedika only sighed. He was content with his humble life. Then one afternoon, Adiz met an old friend at the village stream. Her name was Cynthia, now known as Sisi Cash. Dressed in lace, gold bangles, and high heels that clicked even on sand, Cynthia was a complete opposite of the average village girl. Come to Enugu with me, Cynthia whispered. I'll show you the secret of success. Money is not by hustle, it's by sacrifice. At first, Adiz hesitated. But that night, when Onyedika came back with a scrawny squirrel and asked if they could manage it for 3 days, she made up her mind. 3 days later, she followed Cynthia deep into a forbidden bush in the outskirts of Umuosa village. There, hidden beneath rocks and painted trees, lived Dibia Akwu, the feared native doctor. You want wealth? The Dibia asked, eyes pale and voice like dry leaves. It is simple, but pricey. Adiz nodded eagerly. Anything. The charm came in the form of a powder and a bracelet. The rules were clear. 1. She must sacrifice a living creature every 9 nights. 2. She must never sleep beside her husband during a full moon. 3. She must never tell a soul, or her womb would dry like an old leaf. Adiz returned home, pretending nothing happened. But almost instantly, things changed. Money began to flow. Strangers gifted her wrappers. A man from the city sent her a smartphone. Her husband was confused, but Adiz smiled. God has remembered us. Onyedika never questioned her much. Until one night, he saw her digging behind their hut. She held a chicken, whispering strange words to the moon. Adiz grew bolder. She stopped cooking. Stopped fetching water. She mocked Onyedika. One day, she slapped him in public, calling him a useless man. The villagers began to murmur. Her beauty became intense, almost unnatural. But her eyes were cold. On the 3rd month, she forgot to perform the sacrifice. It was market day. She was distracted. That night, her dream was filled with screams. She saw a river of blood and the Dibia's face melting into ash. When she woke up, her feet were covered in red rashes, and her tongue was heavy. The next night, her left eye went blind. Her body shook. Panicking, she ran back to the shrine. But the shrine had burned down. The trees were black, and a crow sat on the altar, watching her. She ran to Cynthia's house in the city, only to find it empty. Cynthia had vanished. A neighbor said she was found mad and naked by the roadside weeks ago. Adiz wept. Her skin began to peel. Her once bright voice turned hoarse like a dying goat. She returned home to Onyedika, crawling, begging for forgiveness. But Onyedika had changed. He stared at her and said, "You left me for gold. Now you return with bones." He took her to the church, to the pastor, to the prophets, but none could help. On the 13th night, Adiz screamed and screamed until her voice disappeared. She was found stiff, kneeling at the back of their hut, mouth wide open, eyes frozen in terror. In her hands was a chicken, dead. But this time, It wasn't sacrificed. It was a warning. The villagers buried her without music. Her grave is still there in Obeil village, covered with salt and ashes, for fear her spirit would return. And the bracelet? It vanished. Some say they see her shadow at night by the stream, whispering, searching for the sacrifice she missed. Greed leads many into the mouth of the lion. Some never return. If the road to wealth is too fast and too dark, check again, you may be walking with shadows.